Hi, um, my name's Carl, and I recently set up this. I don't know why I'm sitting on the floor, to be honest. It's kind of ridiculous, but I was trying to make this all look as professional as possible. But I'm gonna just try and I'll be comfortable instead. So, right, still a bit weird. I'm still sitting on the floor, but let's get on with it. So, first of all, my name's Carl, and I've got cervical dystonia. I've had cervical dystonia since 2007. Um, so at this point, then we're looking at 13 years. Um, First of all, I'll talk a little bit about Warriors of Dystonia and how that came about and my idea. So, first of all, um, every single year, multiple times throughout, as I've got older, I've been looking at different things that I can do to try and help people, something positive, looking at different charity things or voluntary work and things like that. And for whatever reason, I've never actually thought about, my own situation, as in dystonia, and ways of trying to bring about awareness, sort of spread awareness of dystonia, not just cervical dystonia, but dystonia and the way that it can affect people's lives. And everything came together just after Christmas there, 2020. I actually woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, why don't I actually try and do something then? Try and get some awareness. In my spare time, I'm a writer. I've self-published. I know, self-published, but I've self-published a couple of books which are around comedy and horror. I'm a big horror fan. I'm a big horror geek, and I've also got a very dark sense of humor as well. It's what gets me through my days. And I thought, well, why don't I actually put together a book of stories from fellow Dystonia warriors, just little snippets of their life, sort of a glimpse at, maybe it could be a story about how they discovered that they had dystonia. Maybe it could be a snippet of something that's happened, in their life that they want to share, But the idea being that we spread awareness of dystonia to people that don't really know much about it, as well as sharing stories which are interesting for people that have dystonia to read, that could possibly show them that they're not alone, and that there's other people that are out there that are also facing the same sort of battles and struggles that that they're perhaps going through as well. When I first initially started setting up this project, there were I had this. I got to be honest. I bulldozed. I went straight in with I built a website. The website I'm really pleased with, but there's a lot of things that I didn't think of. And when I sent a link to the website out to my friends and family to have a look at, they gave me some really good advice around, frequently asked questions. People might want to know what the idea of this book is and where you want to take it and things like that. So I'm a much better writer than talker. However, I will sort of blog this as I go along. It helps me sort of express things that are currently going on through my head at that point. So at this particular point, then my idea is that I've created a website which I will share with everyone. Everyone can find it, but I will directly reach out to people in various social media platforms to ask whether they would like to be part of this project, and we'll take them to the website then, where they can read lots and lots of things, about what the idea is and what I'm hoping to create with it. So in a nutshell, what I'd like to do is collect people's stories, including my own, and to put them into an an actual physical book format. There will be a digital format available as well. And I'm going to try really hard to reach out to publishers or book printers that can help keep the costs low, and then every bit of profit, every bit of money that's made from it then will go to Dystonia research, the sort of different charities or different organizations that are trying to find sort of solutions. So a little bit about me then. So like I mentioned at the start of the video, so I've had dystonia since 2007. My dystonia came about not long after the birth of my first child. I'm not saying she was the cause of it, but it was at that point, not long afterwards, that I realized that there was something not quite right. My wife and I, we were going out for our first night out, just as me and her, after the birth of my daughter, and we were sitting in a restaurant, and I noticed that I couldn't actually face my wife. She was sitting just across from me on the same table. Things hadn't gone that bad. We were sitting on the same table together, but I couldn't face her. And the more that I tried, I found I was struggling more. And as I was getting more anxious about this whole thing as well, I noticed the pull in my neck was getting much stronger. I didn't actually say anything at that point. I just put it down to maybe I pulled a muscle from carrying my daughter around. I was getting used to doing everything with one arm. So my daughter in one arm and me trying to make up a bottle or cook or do other things just all with one hand. And so I put it down to a muscle thing. I went to the opticians not long after that, and as they were trying to look in my eye, the optician commented that I was turning away from them, and I didn't actually notice that I was, but I wasn't going to call them a liar. And then when I sort of thought a little bit about what had happened recently at the restaurant, it was kind of making sense. Over time then, I noticed that it was getting a little bit more persistent. I'd originally noticed that it was if I was trying to concentrate or if I was tired that the pulling came, but then I hit a point where there was never a time that it was not pulling and my head wasn't going to one side, and I noticed little things like if I do this, got no problem at all. I can just look straight ahead of me. So I noticed all these little silly, strange things that were going on as well, to counteract this pulling sensation that was going on in my neck. I'm a naturally nervous person anyway. I'm not a big fan of crowds, and as part of my job there would be times where I need to stand in front of groups of people and present and talk, and I'd noticed that this was becoming increasingly difficult, and I was starting to get anxiety, and the more I was getting anxiety, the more that the pulling sensation would come in my neck. So eventually I did go to the doctors. I went to the doctors and they told me initially that it was stress, and that they started to give me pamphlets and things and suggest mindfulness and yoga and all sorts of other stuff like that. And and at that point I thought maybe it is stress then, because I was a new dad. At the time my job was quite tough. I had been promoted and there was a lot going on there, so in the office. So that's what I thought it was. But then even when I was doing stretching exercises and things like that, and I went to physiotherapy and stuff, it just wasn't doing anything. I went back to the doctors and spoke to them, still nothing. Now this went on for 2 years until eventually I looked online and I just typed in something like turny neck, face touch stops, or just a series of words. And I don't know why I hadn't done it before. It'd take me 2 years. Okay, I don't know why. I waited and, anyway. Typed it in and sure enough, this term came up, dystonia. And I was suddenly bombarded with videos and sort of descriptions and things that I was reading that weren't only similar to what I had, but under the banner of cervical dystonia, it was exactly what I had. Um, I felt relieved I finally had a title for it, because I was starting to think that it was some sort of issue mentally, and it was really getting me down. I was getting very depressed. And it was really weird to read that a chronic illness and a chronic situation that I'm going to have for the rest of my life actually made me happy. But it's good to have a label on things. So when I went to my doctors and explained that I had discovered what I had and told them that it was cervical dystonia, I remember it was a female doctor, and not that that's got any point really to the story, but I just remember it was a female doctor that turned around to me and she said, no, there's no way you've got cervical dystonia, you wouldn't be able to walk. And she come up with some sort of nonsense, and I said, please look, just, you've got a computer behind you, type in cervical dystonia and look at my records, look at everything I've been describing for the past 2 years now, and it matches what I've got going on. And she looked at it, and sure enough, she was like, okay. So she referred me to a neurologist, and it took another 2 years to see this neurologist to finally get the official diagnosis of I've got cervical dystonia. And I remember when he was speaking to me, as in such a way as, as he should really, are you okay? And that there is no cure for this. And to be honest with you, at that point, I'd had it for 4 years. The past 2 years, I'd been doing nothing but sort of reading about it, and I'd learned to work around it. Okay, there were things with my job which were no longer possible. My anxiety levels had gone through the roof. Sleep is messed up because I can never get comfortable. I can't drive anymore because, unless I'm on roads where I only ever need to sort of turn, that way, left. So rubbish with left and right. There's no way. If I need to turn right, then we've got difficulties. So driving went out the window as well. So they offered me medication. And just my own personal preference, I've never really taken meds. I suppose I'm a bit paranoid of ingredients on things, so I won't even take painkillers unless it's the last resort. So I asked him a lot of questions about the medication and side effects, and pretty much, he told me at that time, and I mean, things could be different now. Unfortunately, at this current point, I've not been able to see my neurologist for another 2 years, so 2 years and counting. But anyway, at that time, he told me that the medication that he could offer me would leave me sort of sluggish and would sort of impair certain aspects of my life. And to be honest with you, I as much as this, I can have some real bad days with this, but I would rather cope with this right now than being sluggish or impairing what I do for my children. We talked about the deep brain stimulus, DBS, I think it is, and again, I don't think I'm at that sort of point that I need something like that to help me. The Botox injections, we talked a lot about that, and again, I had read at that point that that your body can become resilient to it, and that you would need to increase the amount. So I didn't really want to go down that path either. So, and also again, some of the side effects I was reading sort of scared me. So, my dystonia's not got any worse. I will suffer with the odd sort of tremble. I can have some real shaky days. I have difficulty maybe walking in straight lines sometimes. It can be a bit of a pain in the ass when I'm walking with people. And it's because I can't, if you're crossing the road, you can freely turn your head. And I can't really do that. And I have to hold my head. So when I'm walking with people and talking, I need to make sure they're on my good side. The same with when I'm meeting people in work, I need to make sure they're on my good side, and lots of things like that. I found that if I drink alcohol, if I have a pint of beer, for whatever reason, it stops. I can completely control my head absolutely fine, and I can't really go down the path of drinking beers every single day before I go to work or crack on with my life. I did declare, or I did speak to the neurologist about this, and we did take some blood from me, and I was told that I don't have, that there's a name for it, some alcohol dystonia thing. I was told I don't have it, which is strange because, I told him, and I know for a fact that if I drink alcohol, it stops my dystonia. So I don't understand how taking blood from me and then saying, no, you don't have that, can be of any use to me. It does. Okay, guys, if I drink a pint of beer or any sort of alcohol, a small amount, yeah, it stops. So there's all sorts of strange things. But anyway, so this is the first video. At this current point right now, my website needs to be edited. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, based on the feedback and ideas and suggestions that I've had from friends and family. It's easy enough to find it at the moment, but it's not in its finished state. I should really, I think I'll go on and just, whatever it's called, disable the pages or disable the site for now until it's finished. But what I will do then is, once the website's up and running and everything's great, I will start reaching out directly to people, asking for their stories. And I'll also make myself available on Skype if people want to have a sort of a Skype chat. It isn't going to be a self-help book. The idea is, it's called Warriors of Dystonia. And I called it that because, we are Dystonia warriors, but also Warriors of Dystonia sounds similar to Humans of New York. And I kind of want this to be like that, I want there to be stories of people's experience of going to see the doctor for the first time, the time that they noticed that they had dystonia, whatever form of dystonia it may be. I'm seeing this as a learning experience for myself as well. I don't know an awful lot about the different types of dystonia that are out there and the way that it affects people. I only know about the way that my dystonia affects me. I've made friends and I observe people on Instagram with that are going through dystonia and other sort of movement disorders as well. And there's some true warriors out there. I mean, my hat goes off to them, and I got to be honest, there's one or two individuals out there which were the big inspiration for this. There's a lot of stories that need to be shared, and a lot of battles that I think could be captured, and the awareness needs to be made out there. People need to be aware of this. I had dystonia for 2 years before I actually realized I had dystonia. I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And I think even my friends and family don't fully understand. I try to explain to them some of the things that it affects, and it's difficult to understand, 24/7 of your head just pulling to one side. Like I'm comfy as that, I don't want to spend all fucking day, all day like that, I can't. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you soon, as this project develops. Thank you.